Everything begins in the mind. The thoughts you think, the words you say to yourself when no one is around, the beliefs you hold quietly in the background, all of them are shaping the reality you live in. The mind is the master key that opens or closes the doors of your life. It doesn't matter how many opportunities are available if your mind is locked. It doesn't matter how many resources surround you if your thinking is filled with scarcity and fear. The mind can either be your most powerful ally or your most stubborn enemy. Consider the mind as the command center of a ship. The crew, the engines, the sails, all are waiting for direction. But if the captain gives the wrong orders, the ship can crash even in calm waters. And if the captain gives the right orders, the ship can survive even in the fiercest storm. That's the power of the mind. It doesn't guarantee that the journey will be easy, but it determines whether you rise through it or sink because of it. Many people wait for something external to change, a better job, a bigger house, a new relationship, or more money in the bank. But those are just mirrors. They reflect what's already going on inside. If your internal world is filled with chaos, it eventually spills into your relationships, your career, and your health. On the other hand, a calm and focused mind can bring structure and stability even in the most unpredictable circumstances. Change the mind and the results follow. You've seen it. Two people in the same situation, same challenges, same resources, but two completely different outcomes. One complains, makes excuses, blames others. The other accepts the situation, adapts, and finds a way forward. The difference wasn't the problem, it was the perspective. One person locked their mind to growth, the other unlocked it. One saw obstacles, the other saw opportunity. And all of that was decided long before the outcome arrived. It was decided in the mind. You don't have to be a genius to make changes in life. You just have to be willing to adjust your thinking. That's the secret most people overlook. They work harder, they struggle longer, they burn out faster, but they forget to examine the foundation. And the foundation is their mindset. If you're building a house on sand, it doesn't matter how beautiful the walls are. The storm will come and it will collapse. But if you build it on rock, on disciplined, empowered, intentional thinking, then even the toughest winds won't blow it down. When you feed your mind with growth, positivity, and clarity, your actions begin to shift. You start doing things differently. You carry yourself with more confidence. You speak with more authority. You plan your days with more purpose. And that shift in behavior, that rise in standard, changes the quality of your life. But it didn't start with behavior. It started with a choice, a decision to take control of the mind. That's the beginning of any transformation. You master the mind and everything else begins to fall into place. Now, mastering the mind doesn't mean your life will be without challenge. It just means you will have the tools to meet those challenges with strength instead of fear. Instead of reacting, you start responding. Instead of avoiding the hard truths, you face them with resolve. The moment you understand that your life is not a product of luck, but a reflection of thought, everything changes. You stop waiting and start creating. You stop hoping and start acting. And that change, subtle at first, grows into a powerful momentum. A momentum that shifts your habits, influences your choices, and reshapes your direction. The mind is not a fixed machine, it's a muscle. You train it like you would train your body. Feed it, stretch it, challenge it. And the stronger it becomes, the more clearly it sees. The more clearly it sees, the more confidently it leads. And the more confidently it leads, the more powerfully you live. What a person believes about themselves becomes the boundary of what they achieve. Not because the world imposes limits, but because the mind does. A belief is not just a thought repeated over time, it's a lens through which all of life is filtered. When a person believes they are not capable, even the simplest task becomes a burden. When they believe they are resourceful and strong, even the most complex challenge becomes a puzzle to solve. The difference isn't in the situation, it's in the belief system that surrounds it. From a young age, people begin collecting beliefs. Some are empowering that hard work pays off, that kindness matters, that failure is part of growth. Others are limiting that success is for others, that wealth is selfish, that they are not good enough. These beliefs take root and become mental programs running quietly in the background. They influence the decisions made, the risks taken, the relationships pursued, and even the dreams allowed to be imagined. And the most powerful truth is this: the world doesn't respond to who you are. It responds to who you believe you are. There are people walking around with unbelievable potential, carrying inside them talents the world has never seen, ideas the world desperately needs, and strength that could lift mountains. But they never act on them. They never explore that potential. Why? because somewhere along the way, they adopted a belief that said, I'm not the kind of person who can do that. That belief became a wall. Not a real wall, just a mental one. But it was enough to stop progress, to halt growth, to dim the light before it ever had a chance to shine. The amazing thing about belief is that it can be changed. It's not carved in stone. It's not locked by genetics or fate. It's written in chalk, and with enough awareness and effort, it can be erased and rewritten. A person who once believed they were unlucky can start to see how they've been making unlucky choices. A person who believed they were unworthy can begin to understand that they were simply repeating a lie someone else once told them. And in that moment of recognition, the belief begins to shift, and when the belief shifts, the life begins to shift. Belief isn't just something abstract or spiritual, it's deeply practical. It determines how early you wake up in the morning. It decides how much effort you put into your work. It tells you whether to say yes to an opportunity or whether to hide in fear. It shapes your language, your energy, and your direction. It's the architect of your confidence, the author of your identity. And if it's left unexamined, it will build a life that fits its blueprint, whether or not that blueprint serves you. You can have the best tools in the world, the latest strategies, the most advanced technology. But if the belief underneath it all is broken, none of it will matter. The belief system will sabotage the progress. It will say, this won't last, or you don't deserve this, or you'll mess it up eventually. And slowly, you begin to act in ways that align with those beliefs, even if you don't realize it. That's why real transformation starts with internal renovation. Not the kind people can see on the outside, but the kind that takes place in the quiet places of the mind. Sometimes all it takes is one new belief to open up a new life. A belief that you are enough, that you can learn, that your past does not define your future, that your voice matters. When that belief is accepted, it becomes a new filter. Suddenly, things look different. Possibilities appear where there were none. Courage emerges where fear once stood. And the beautiful thing is, once you taste the freedom of an empowering belief, you never want to go back to the prison of limitation. Beliefs are not just internal, they radiate outward. They influence how you treat others, what you expect from life, and how life responds to you. Change your belief and you change your energy. Change your energy and you change your outcomes. People feel it when someone walks into a room with belief. They listen differently, respond differently, trust more easily. Because belief is not just something you hold, it's something that holds you upright in a world that often tries to bend you down. Every action you take, every word you speak, every result you get starts with a single thought. One small thought in the corner of your mind can become the spark that ignites a revolution in your life. Thoughts are seeds, and just like a seed carries the blueprint of the tree it will become, every thought contains the future it will create. Think in fear, and fear grows. Think in strength, and strength rises. Nothing appears in your life by accident. It first appears in your mind long before it becomes reality. The greatest mistake people make is underestimating the power of a single thought. They let worry fester, they let resentment simmer, they let doubt hang around like a shadow, and then they wonder why life feels heavy, unclear, and uninspired. What they haven't realized is that they've been planting weeds and expecting flowers. They've been repeating thoughts that choke possibility and expecting results that require clarity, courage, and consistency. But life doesn't work that way. The harvest always matches the seed. If you think of your mind as a garden, then your thoughts are what you plant every day. Some people tend to that garden with care. They pull out the weeds of envy and bitterness. They water the seeds of gratitude and purpose. They expose their minds to light, the light of good books, meaningful conversations, and intentional learning. Others neglect the garden. They let anything grow. They allow the media, gossip, fear, and negativity to scatter wild seeds in their soil. And over time, that garden begins to mirror the neglect, messy, directionless, overrun by things that were never meant to be there. Change begins the moment you take responsibility for what you're thinking. That's the moment you stop being a victim of random mental traffic and start becoming the architect of your own mind. You don't wait for positive thoughts to arrive, you plant them. You don't hope for clarity, you cultivate it. You choose to sit with your thoughts, observe them, redirect them. Because just like physical health comes from disciplined eating and movement, mental strength comes from disciplined thinking and focus. The people who lead extraordinary lives are not born with extraordinary minds. They simply learn to become conscious of their thoughts. When a thought of self-doubt appeared, they questioned it. When fear whispered, they talked back. When uncertainty tried to take the wheel, They reminded themselves that it's better to steer through the fog than to park and do nothing. They didn't wait for perfect conditions to start changing their lives. They started with what they had, a thought. One single thought that said, "There must be more than this." And that was enough. Thoughts are not just silent whispers. They are instructions to your brain, signals to your body, commands to your emotions. You think stress and your body tightens. You think joy and your body relaxes. You think possibility and your eyes start scanning for opportunity. The brain doesn't argue with you. It obeys the direction of your thoughts. That's why it's so important to choose those directions with care. You can't plant thoughts of fear and then complain that confidence didn't grow. You can't repeat thoughts of failure and expect success to bloom. Your mind is fair. It gives back exactly what you put in. The good news is you don't need to have everything figured out to change your thoughts. You just need to be willing. Willing to pause before reacting. Willing to replace criticism with curiosity. Willing to talk to yourself like someone you respect instead of someone you resent. And little by little, as you practice that, your mind starts to shift. You stop feeding thoughts that disempower, and you start nurturing thoughts that uplift. The soil becomes richer, the seeds become stronger, and the garden of your life begins to grow in a direction that reflects your intention, not your habit. Every breakthrough you've ever witnessed started with a thought. Every invention, every speech, every leap of faith. Someone somewhere had an idea that didn't exist before. They believed in it long enough for it to become something real. That same power exists in you. The difference is not in potential, it's in the planting. You either plant by design or by default. You either choose your thoughts or let them be chosen for you. But no matter what, the harvest is coming. And when it does, it will always match what you planted in the first place. Discipline is often misunderstood. People think it's about punishment, about forcing yourself into discomfort. But real discipline is not about restriction. It's about liberation. When you train your mind, when you set standards for your thinking, you're not limiting your freedom. You're unlocking it. You're freeing yourself from the control of impulses, from the sway of every emotion, from the grip of negativity that tries to hijack your focus every day. Mental discipline is the foundation upon which all lasting change is built, because it's the mind that decides what you do, how you feel, and who you become. The mind is constantly receiving signals, temptations, distractions, doubts, fears. If it's left untrained, it reacts to all of them. It jumps from thought to thought, from mood to mood, from decision to decision without any anchor. It becomes like a leaf in the wind, drifting, spinning, always moving, but never arriving. But when discipline enters the picture, the mind starts to behave differently. It begins to listen, it pauses, it questions, it prioritizes. It moves with purpose, not with pressure. Mental discipline means you don't allow every thought a seat at the table. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion deserves your reaction. Not every urge deserves your action. Just because something enters your mind doesn't mean it gets to stay there. Discipline says, I see you, but you don't control me. It creates a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap lies clarity, power, and peace. People often say, I can't help how I feel. But the truth is, while you may not control the initial feeling, you absolutely control what you do with it. Do you feed it, repeat it, build stories around it? Or do you observe it, learn from it, and move forward anyway? That choice, again and again, is the essence of mental discipline. It's the decision to not be owned by your mind, but to own it. It's the refusal to let fleeting emotions rewrite permanent realities. There's freedom in structure. When your mind has clear rules, when you've trained it to focus, to resist distraction, to stay grounded in the face of challenge, you're no longer a prisoner of your environment. External chaos doesn't become internal chaos. The opinions of others don't define your self-worth. Unexpected problems don't destroy your peace. That's not because the world has changed, it's because you've built a mind that can handle it. Discipline also shows up in consistency. In doing what you said you would do, long after the mood you set it in has left, the undisciplined mind makes promises it never keeps. It sets goals in the heat of motivation and abandons them in the cold of inconvenience. But a disciplined mind does the work whether it feels like it or not. It understands that feelings are not facts and that progress doesn't bow to comfort. That kind of thinking builds resilience, and resilience builds results. Every great achievement is the child of discipline. Whether it's in health, relationships, business, or personal growth, it was made possible by someone who chose to guide their thoughts instead of letting their thoughts guide them. They didn't wait to feel ready. They didn't expect things to be easy. They simply decided that their mind would be an ally, not an obstacle. And they made that decision not once, but every single day. There will always be noise in the world. There will always be a reason to worry, a reason to complain, a reason to quit. The disciplined mind doesn't pretend the noise doesn't exist. It simply doesn't amplify it. It turns the volume down on fear and turns the volume up on faith. It redirects energy from excuses into execution. It understands that you are not what you think. You are what you do with what you think. Mental discipline is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming powerful in your own space. It's about walking into a room, a challenge, a new day with the quiet confidence that no matter what comes your way, your mind is prepared. It's been trained to handle it, not with panic, but with poise. Not with chaos, but with calm. That is the strength that transforms circumstances. That is the muscle that carries you through the seasons of life. And that strength is available to anyone willing to put in the work to develop it. The future is not something that just arrives one day and surprises you. It is something you are building every moment with your thoughts, your beliefs, and your decisions. And the engine behind that building process is your mind. If your mind is stuck in the past, limited by fear and shaped by old habits, then your future will simply be a repetition of your yesterday. But when you begin to renew your mind, when you challenge old assumptions, replace outdated beliefs, and stretch beyond inherited limitations, you give yourself permission to create a future that looks nothing like your past. Too many people live in cycles. The same year, repeated 5 or 10 times, just with different dates on the calendar. Why? Because they keep thinking the same way. They keep expecting new results while rehearsing old thoughts. They look for change outside while clinging to the same mental patterns inside. But change doesn't start with a new job, a new city, or a new relationship. It starts with a new perspective. Until the mind changes, the results won't either. A renewed future demands a renewed mind. The mind is like a mirror. It reflects what it's exposed to. If you've been exposed to years of negativity, criticism, failure, or fear, your mental mirror gets fogged. You stop seeing your potential. You stop noticing the open doors. You start defining yourself by your lowest moments. But that mirror can be cleaned. You can renew what you see by renewing what you believe. You can start choosing better inputs, books that inspire, people who uplift, thoughts that build. And with every better input, the mirror becomes clearer and the reflection starts to shift. Renewing your mind also means questioning the labels you've accepted. Maybe someone once told you that you're not smart, not strong, not enough. Maybe life handed you setbacks and you silently agreed with the verdict. But renewal begins when you stop agreeing with the lies. When you realize that those labels were never yours to begin with. That you are allowed to rewrite your identity, not based on your history, but based on your possibility. You are not your failures. You are not your fears. You are not your past decisions. You are the thinker behind those experiences, and you have the power to think again, to decide again, to rise again. Sometimes the mind clings to old pain because it feels familiar. It replays the hurt, the betrayal, the mistake, as if repeating it will somehow fix it. But all it does is anchor you to what's already done. Renewal is the act of letting go, not pretending it didn't happen, but refusing to give it power over what happens next. You acknowledge the lesson, release the burden, and reclaim your ability to move forward. And that movement, however small, is proof that renewal is working. Renewing your mind doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it differently. Two people can face the same situation, loss, failure, uncertainty, and walk away with completely different experiences. One sees defeat, the other sees direction. One feels stuck, the other feels shaped. The difference isn't in the event. It's in the meaning assigned to it. Renewal is about changing the meanings you give to life so that life can give you new meaning in return. Renewal also requires repetition. One new thought won't change your life, just like one drop of water doesn't grow a tree. You have to keep feeding your mind with better thoughts over and over until the new pattern becomes stronger than the old one. At first, it feels forced. You're affirming things you don't yet believe, visualizing things you haven't yet achieved. But that's how it begins. Belief often follows repetition. Confidence grows through consistency. And slowly, the renewal becomes natural. Your mind starts to default to strength, to clarity, to vision. That becomes your new normal. Renewal is not just mental, it's emotional, spiritual, behavioral. When your mind is renewed, you stop chasing things that don't serve you. You stop settling for things that shrink you. You start recognizing opportunities that once intimidated you. You begin to show up differently, not because life changed, but because you did. and that internal shift makes all the difference. You walk with more intention, speak with more clarity, act with more conviction. The renewed mind gives birth to a renewed you, and a renewed you will never again accept an outdated life. Your destiny is not determined by chance, fate, or luck. It is determined by mindset. The way you think about yourself, your challenges, your possibilities, and your place in the world sets the trajectory of your life. Two people can be born into the same circumstances, face the same hardships, and be given the same tools, yet one will rise and the other will remain stuck. The difference lies not in opportunity, but in outlook. Not in conditions, but in conclusions. What you tell yourself about what's possible is often what becomes possible. Mindset is not just one part of success. It's the steering wheel that guides every other part. There are mindsets that lift and mindsets that limit. A growth mindset says, I can learn, I can improve, I can adapt, while a fixed mindset says, I've always been this way, I can't change, this is just who I am. One opens doors, the other locks them. One invites curiosity, the other hides behind fear. And the mind, being obedient, will follow whichever one is in charge. The mindset you choose becomes the compass you follow, even when you're not consciously aware of it. A positive, resilient, forward-looking mindset is not just about thinking happy thoughts. It's about developing the mental habits that prepare you for life's inevitable ups and downs. It's about seeing setbacks not as permanent ends, but as part of the process. It's about asking better questions in tough situations. Not, why is this happening to me? But what is this teaching me? Not, what do I lack? But what can I learn? A strong mindset doesn't ignore reality. It navigates it with perspective and strength. You can look at your current life and trace it back to past mindsets. The decisions you made, the risks you took or avoided, the boundaries you set or didn't set, all of them were influenced by your inner narrative. If you believed you were worthy of success, you pursued it. If you believed you weren't good enough, you held back. That belief shaped your behavior, and your behavior shaped your results. That's how mindset writes the story of your life. One thought, one choice, one chapter at a time. When people say someone is lucky, they often overlook the mindset that positioned them for that so-called luck. They don't see the late nights filled with learning, the early mornings filled with discipline, or the thousands of decisions made from a place of intentional thinking. They see the outcome, but not the outlook that made it possible. Success leaves clues, and one of the first clues you'll find in anyone who has achieved meaningful progress is a mindset that refused to stay small. The beauty of mindset is that it's not fixed. It can be shaped, strengthened, and sharpened with effort. You don't have to accept the one you inherited from childhood, society, or past experiences. You can question it, challenge it, and replace it. You can decide that your thoughts will no longer be driven by fear, by excuses, by limitation. You can choose to think thoughts that align with your highest potential, not your lowest moment. That choice, made again and again, is what shifts the direction of your life. Mindset also determines the quality of your relationships, your health, and your influence. When you believe in abundance, you lift others instead of competing with them. When you believe in growth, you invest in yourself rather than making excuses. When you believe in purpose, you act with intention, and people notice. They're drawn to that energy, that clarity, that sense of direction. That's what creates lasting impact, not just talent, not just charisma, but the mindset behind every word and action. Even in moments of failure, the right mindset reinterprets the story. It says, this is not the end, this is data. This is direction. This is preparation for the next level. And with that framing, failure loses its sting and becomes fuel. People with powerful mindsets don't escape pain, but they refuse to be defined by it. They walk through fire and come out with lessons instead of scars. That's the kind of thinking that transforms setbacks into comebacks, problems into purpose, and uncertainty into possibility. Every vision needs a vehicle, and mindset is that vehicle. You can have the clearest goals, the best strategy, and all the tools in the world. But if your mindset doesn't believe in it, pursue it, or protect it, the vision will remain just that, a vision. Mindset is what breathes life into it. It's what gives you the strength to keep going when nothing seems to be working. It's what allows you to stand tall when the pressure builds and to rise again when you fall. It's not what happens to you. It's what you're thinking about what happens to you that determines where you end up. The mind is where it all begins. Your life today is a reflection of the thoughts, beliefs, and disciplines you've allowed to take root. If you want to change your results, change your mind. The moment you understand that your mindset is not just an accessory, but the foundation of your future, You stop waiting for change and start becoming the change. You realize that belief is not just something you feel, it's something you train. That every thought is a seed and you have the choice to plant what grows. That with discipline. You're not limiting yourself, you're freeing yourself. That when you renew your thinking, you unlock new paths, new opportunities, and a new version of you. And ultimately, when you choose to shift your mindset from fear to faith, from doubt to possibility, from reaction to intention, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your life. Because the greatest power you will ever hold is the power to decide what lives in your mind. And once that decision is made, the rest of your life starts to follow its lead.